So, upon talking to my friends who also learn Japanese, who are kind of in the beginner stage, right? They all do this thing when they immerse that I tell them it's the dumbest thing you can do. So, there's a very specific thing that I bet a lot of you doing this are watching, and you think it's helping you learn Japanese by doing this, right? It's making the process better for you, more comfortable for you, but it's actually, the worst thing you can do. So, first, to kind of understand before I talk about why this certain thing is so bad, I just gotta get to how humans are actually supposed to kind of learn language, right? Like parse language, right? So as a kid, you didn't actually like analyze grammar patterns. You just consumed thousands of hours of content. But luckily, you don't have to learn language like a kid, right? You can leverage some of your adult knowledge and having already known a native language, right? Because when you're a kid, you don't know a language, you're learning your first one. But right now, you already know a language, so it's going to be easier for you to equivalate things, right? So language, it's not a math problem. Okay, you're not learning a language either. One of the things I really like about AJAT is that Katsumoto, right, the guy who made AJAT, writes the blog. He says you're not learning Japanese, you're actually just getting used to it, right? Over thousands and thousands of hours of input, you're just getting used to it. It's not that you're actually learning Japanese, right? That kind of makes it seem like Japanese is like a problem to be solved, but no, you're just getting used to it. So you can skip all that tedious stuff that the kids go through, meaning you don't have to be sat there watching Sesame Street for 8 hours a day. But generally, input is the single most important thing. So basically, humans just acquire language through comprehensible input. So don't treat it like a math problem, okay? Because as a human, you have a biological ability to acquire language when you're exposed to it long enough. So that ability doesn't also just apply to children either. It's not like you lose that ability to acquire language as you get older. So language learning, right, is just studying in a classroom or using textbooks or Duolingo and trying to make sense of Japanese in your native language, for me, English. So language acquisition is just picking up all that stuff over time through mass exposure and just using your brain's natural pattern recognition, which is what you're just biologically and evolutionarily supposed to do. So you already know how to do this and you already know what to do, which is immersion. But the thing about immersion is that you're immersing, but what's the bad thing here? Specifically, it's the English subs. It's the English subs that all you are using, okay? Because I talk to my friends and they're like, "Oh, okay, I have my core 2K deck on Anki, right? I do 15 words a day, and then I go watch subbed anime, but I can't understand anything." Okay, so this is just cope because your focus is not on Japanese, it's on the English, because when the English subs are on the screen, your brain is naturally going to prioritize them because they're already in the language that you understand. You get lazy, right? This doesn't mean you're actually processing the Japanese audio. You're literally just reading the English. You might hear the Japanese and you think you're learning stuff, but you're not actually immersed in it, right? Because comprehensible input requires the Japanese context, and also just acquiring language effectively requires you to be focused on the listening, but having these subtitles is going to split your attention between reading in English and then listening in Japanese. So instead of fully kind of engaging with Japanese, you're constantly switching between English, Japanese, which is gonna just kind of ruin the entire impact of immersion. So according to this kind of like input hypothesis, right, language is going to be acquired through exposure to comprehensible input, and that's just language that's kind of slightly above your current level and understanding. Because if you're watching stuff that you understand 100%, that's it feels nice, but it's not really going to help you. So when you're watching with English subtitles, you're relying on that English text to comprehend what's happening rather than kind of connecting the Japanese sounds directly with the meaning. And it's gonna be hard, right? Japanese is not this isn't it's not a cakewalk, it's not like an easy thing to do. Okay? But really your brain is just gonna pick up patterns best when there's just you and the language. So you're going to be strongest when you're just exposed directly to the language. If you're constantly using English as a crutch, then you're missing out on all the repetition and pattern recognition that would naturally happen if you just had Japanese. So that's great and all, but you might be thinking, but I need the subs to understand, right? I'll turn them off when I can. So if I were to ask you, right, when are you going to take off the subtitles? I asked my friend, I said, when are you taking off the subtitles? And he said, well, once I can understand enough, I'll turn them off. Okay, and my guess is if you're watching this, that sounds kind of logical, but in reality, this is all code, right? You can't understand unsubbed anime unless you put time and effort into trying to understand unsubbed anime. Basically, in other words, you're not going to understand it unless you just do the hard thing, right? And you actually focus on understanding anime without subs. You have to just, it's like, you ever heard that analogy of like, people are like, oh, you can read about how to swim in a pool, right? You can watch other people swim in a pool, but at the end of the day, you have to hop in the pool and actually learn how to swim yourself. It's that kind of thing. So keep consuming, and eventually you'll understand. So the content doesn't really matter as long as it's native content, right? As long as it's made for natives, that's the best kind of content in my opinion. Because the learner content, it's like there's a lot of context clues on it, and that's nice, and that might be good for when you're beginning. But generally, what I think is, if it's not something you enjoy, it's not fun to watch, and it's not like, it's just gonna be a lot harder for you to learn. So if you think this doesn't sound efficient at all, of trying to understand something when you can barely understand, that's why you use something like Anki, right? You have that 2K word deck that you're learning from, but you're also doing the anime and looking out for the words that you already know, right? Tolerating ambiguity. I remember when I first started out, I had what's that YouTube channel called? It's like Yusuke, no, I forget the channel, but it's basically a dude who just walks around Tokyo, and he does a bunch of monologues in Japanese, right? So I could not understand a single thing that bro was saying. Okay, I could not understand a single thing he was saying, and I was reading the Japanese subtitles, and I was just getting a feel for like how the words sound, and all that great stuff. And whenever I'd see a word that I just learned today, I would look out for it and be like, oh wait, and I would try to figure out the context in which he was saying it. And of course, it was very slow. It took like 3 months to even get like a little kind of gist of it. But that's how you learn at the end of the day. At the end of the day, it's not like you'll be able to understand Japanese in a month. If you think you can fully understand Japanese in like a month or two, then I don't know what to tell you. So my point is, this is all cope. Turn off the subs and actually do something hard, right? Actually put in the effort, and you'll get something out of it. So I hope this helped you, and それじゃまたね。